Welcome to a Legalbytes presentation of the Karen Reed murder trial. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel we make sense of the law one bite at a time. If you want more on the background of the Karen Reed case, check out our video on it linked in the description below. But otherwise, you be the jury. Did Karen Reed murder her Boston PD boyfriend John O'Keefe, or is she being framed by local police who Reed says are actually responsible for O'Keefe's death? Tell us what you think. But in the process, the one rule is don't be a dingus. Remember, everyone comes from their own perspective and opinion, and everyone comes to conclusions at their own pace. Agree or disagree, but always respectfully. Okay, let's get into it. All right, you guys, happy Friday. This is a surprise that we have a trial day on Friday because, as you know, Judge Beverly Canone said from the beginning that Fridays would be off. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And today we have a special guest with us. She's been on the channel once before, but never on a live stream. Super excited because we're talking about paramedics. We're talking some of this stuff that's coming up. Of course, we're talking a lot about the statements that Karen Reed maybe made, maybe didn't make. But we're also talking about some of the injuries that have come up. So today we have with us Jess the MD. She's got her own YouTube channel. Oh, I need to put you in the description. I just remembered, and I need to get you in the chat. We'll get you in the description. Mods will get you in the chat. But she is a doctor. Well, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I am a family medicine doctor in Texas. Just here to comment on what I can. Super excited to be here. I've followed this case and it's really interesting to see where it's going from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to get your YouTube channel in the description, and you do a lot of like react videos, right? Where you talk about like medical diagnoses and things like that.
Yeah. So lots of react videos, and I kind of use that more of as a jumping off point to chat about all the fun medical things that come up in some of those TV shows. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So, all right, let's get into it because Judge Canone just started a couple minutes ago. And so last I saw, it looked like she was instructing the jury. Oh no, are we back to a fan? No, we're not. We're in court now. Okay, sorry. I'm talking about this as I'm like not putting this on the screen. Okay, let's see if we've got, do we have sound here?
To see counsel at sidebar for a brief moment.
Okay, well, she's at a sidebar. I'm not going to be calling them sidebars anymore during this trial. This is all Boston here. So while we've got a sidebar, okay, so now we're caught up to live. So let's talk a little bit about some of the medical stuff. And folks in the chat, if you have any questions, as always, put them in the chat. If we can't answer them right away, I'll be saving them by starring them. By StreamYard has a way to do that. And so we'll definitely get to them. And Jess told me that she's going to be here for a bit, so she can answer some questions and stuff. I know that the injuries in this case are like super disputed here. And we've talked about disputed injuries before on this channel, specifically with the Jonathan Majors case. That one was interesting, and we were dealing with like limited information there because that trial was not televised. Like we were just getting late information on like the specifics of those injuries. But yeah. So do you have any like immediate thoughts based on like what you have seen so far about the injuries?
So honestly, not so much. I think I recall there was something about a dog and potentially being like having injuries from a dog, which would be dramatically different from injuries that would happen from a car accident, from being hit by a car. So I want to see more information on what exactly his injuries were, because that will give us really the answer, I think, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. So just to give like at least the basic rundown on the injuries that have been described. So the prosecution says that that the injuries all come from blunt force trauma, from her hitting him with her car and then him falling on the ground. There was some snow on the ground reportedly at the hour that this would have happened. Some snowfall started around 10:30, 11 from some of the testimony. The prosecution alleges that this happened around 12:30 a.m. The defense alleges, however, that something completely different happened, that he got into some kind of a fight inside the house, that maybe there was also a dog that was living in the house. The dog was involved in this fight also, that maybe, like, they haven't said this, but this is kind of what it sounds like they're saying, is that the dog may have been protective of like the homeowner who may have been in the fight with him. And so, and this is a canine, like this is a former canine. So they're trained on, all of that kind of stuff. Um, and then basically, like, so that's what they allege. And so the injuries are, there's a couple black eyes, more so on the right eye than the left. It looks like there's a laceration right between the eyelid and the eyebrow. There's a laceration in the back that's like a lateral one. There's like scratches down the right side of, or down the right arm, scratches, cuts, abrasions. Like, there have been some different ways that people have described them. And my first impression of like the arm was like, that could be like claw marks, scratch marks from a dog, bite marks maybe, or it could maybe be road rash. Like, that's, but I'm obviously
Have they
not.
shown pictures yet, or
They
just described it?
have. There
Okay.
have been pictures of it. I can see if I can bring them up on screen at some point if they don't show them here, but they have described them here, and they're definitely going to show them with the medical examiner's report for sure. Okay, so we've got the. All right, so we've got same witness as yesterday continuing her direct examination. This is Katie McLaughlin, one of the paramedics for Canton Fire Department.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Morning. Now, I have a few more questions for you. So, turn your attention to the period of time you testified about yesterday when you're at Mr. O'Keefe is in the back of the ambulance. With respect to his clothing, what, if any, observations did you make in regards to that clothing?
He had, in terms of what he was wearing,
First, in terms of what he was wearing.
he was wearing jeans. He had on a dark colored light zip up jacket. And I noticed one sneaker.
Now, with regard to that clothing, what, if any, observations did you make in regards to the condition of that clothing?
It was soaked through.
As far as tears or holes or anything else with regard to that clothing, what, if any, observations did you make of that?
I didn't see any.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 18. May I approach the witness room?
Yes.
I know he's really quiet.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm going to try boosting the volume. And he's the only one that can never be
Now,
heard.
first,
Everyone
Firefighter
else is
McLaughlin, do
fine.
you recognize what's up on the screen as exhibit 18?
Do I
Do you
recognize
recognize what it is?
what it is?
Yes.
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
The address of the call, 34 Fairview Road.
Now, with respect to this photograph, do you observe within it or where Mr. O'Keefe was on the ground when you first arrived?
From this angle, no, I don't.
And if you could, it was not on the photograph, is it off to the left, the right, or where would it be in relation to this photograph?
To the left, I would say.
And about how far off frame do you believe it was?
I'm not sure. So my view of the call was, my reference point wasn't a house on either side. The patient was off the road. So my view of this call was the patient was on the side of the road. The only thing that I noted was a fire hydrant. So in relation to, I know it was to the left of a house, but I'm not sure exactly how far left it would be from this picture, from this angle.
So your memory is to the left of the house near a fire hydrant, is that correct?
Yes.
Take that down. I have no further questions.
All right. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So basically a whole lot of nothing this morning from the rest of the direct examination. This should be interesting though.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
Morning.
You responded to the call of an unresponsive male in the snow at 34 Fairview. That was the address you recalled, correct?
Correct.
The house you just looked at, that is in fact 34 Fairview, right?
Correct.
As Mr. O'Keefe was being transported by ambulance, you were instructed by firefighter Flamati to get information about the victim from Karen Reed, correct?
He wasn't being transported by the ambulance at that time. He was on the stretcher. And Tony, who was at the head of the stretcher, asked me to get information from Miss Reed about the patient, but he wasn't being transported in the ambulance at that time.
Who's Tony?
Firefighter Flamati.
Got it. When you did, in fact, did you follow those directives?
I did.
When you finally approached Miss Reed in order to get that medical history as best you could, what did the scene look like? Who was with you or around you?
So they started to move the stretcher towards the ambulance. Miss Reed was sort of, I guess I would describe it as moving around the scene. So she was moving, kind of going in circles. So I was really just focused on her, trying to get her to converse with me and get those questions. So that I wasn't really noticing anything else at that point. I was more just trying to contact her, and she was moving around.
What were you wearing at the time?
I had my like winter fire jacket on.
What color is it?
It's yellow and red.
We're going to get
Right,
some more
yellow
dash cam.
For safety purposes.
Yes.
So I think that we're about to see some more dash cam footage on this and try to see if he can pinpoint where she says that she was when she was talking to Karen Reed, because yesterday he did this with Anthony Flamati to try to figure out like, okay, like who's this, and he couldn't identify basically anyone. Admittedly, the dash cam footage is blurry because there's like snow and everything else, and it is pretty hard to see, but it is interesting that like that he couldn't, like, none of it at least triggered his memory to be like, yeah, this is when I was here after I did XYZ. He just couldn't recall basically anything, which is not helpful to the prosecution because of the fact that there's corroboration of like who was, in the presence of someone else at some point. And so he couldn't corroborate. So maybe she will be able to corroborate at this point. So far, she's the first paramedic to say that I was mostly focused on getting information from her as opposed to I was mostly focused on patient care. So that's an interesting point too.
When you began your actual questioning, once everybody sort of stood still, and you began your questioning of Ms. Reed, you were standing in one spot, Ms. Reed was standing to your right, is that right?
Well, the questioning started, as I said, she was moving around the scene. So the questioning was ongoing as she was moving around to different locations. I don't know exactly how many of the questions I got out during the time that she was moving around. At one point, we did come to a stop. And at that point, she was to my right.
That's the point I want to focus your attention on, if I could. When you came to a stop, that's the point at which you recall the statement being made that you attribute to my client.
Yes.
Okay. And in that group, who was there? I want to make sure I understand this exactly.
So there was Miss Reed to my right. There was a civilian woman to my left. There was a police officer who was not directly across from me, but I would say maybe diagonal to me, closer to Miss Reed.
That's how she described it yesterday.
Your Honor, I'm holding a photograph. This has been shown to the Commonwealth. May I approach?
Yes.
I'll show you Ms. McLaughlin, a still photograph. I'm going to ask you to take a quick look at that photograph and look up after you've studied it for a second and tell me if you recognize people that are in that photograph.
I recognize
Okay.
people in it.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes. Is this an exhibit or are you moving to introduce it?
I'm moving to introduce it. It has not been introduced as yet.
Okay. So go ahead and have the witness adopt it first.
Sure. Do you see the person closest to frame? Closest to the camera?
Yes.
In what appears to be a yellow and red jacket.
Yes.
Who's that?
That would be me.
Who's to your right?
It appears to be Miss Reed,
And to your left?
a civilian woman,
And across, as you said, sort of diagonal, closer to Miss Reed is,
a police officer.
do you know that officer's name, by the way?
I don't know his name.
Okay. Your Honor, with that, I would ask that this be marked as next in order.
Okay. Is there any objection?
No objection.
So we are going to remark these exhibits today because of the problems that I indicated at sidebar. How do you want to do this, Madam Reporter? I don't know where we start from.
What kind of issues?
Tori, how many are in evidence? Folks, it's my responsibility to make sure the record is intact. And you've heard numbers 1, 3, 309, 247. We need to straighten this out to make sure it's appropriate for you. You know what, Madam Clerk, Madam Court Reporter, just mark it as the next exhibit number, whatever in the hundreds that is, and we'll take care of this today. I don't want to waste your time, folks, while we do this, but it's very important that we do it. All right. All right, so there was any objection to that from the Commonwealth?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin, this is the time or the scene that you told us about when you heard the statement that you've attributed to my client, correct?
Sorry, say that again?
Sure. This is a moment in time, it captures a moment in time when you're standing there. To your right is Karen Reed, which you've described. To your left is a civilian female, which you've described. And across from you is an officer, which you've also described.
Yes.
So this would be the time or close in time to the time that you heard the statement that you attribute to Ms. Reed, correct?
Yes.
The first time you ever made that official report, or an official report to law enforcement regarding that statement was January 30th, 2022, correct?
Well, yes and no. The statement was made in front of the police officer, so that would technically be the first time
First time you made a report though.
that statement was made to a police officer in my presence. And then, yes, I testified to it on January 30th, as you said.
You said it on January 30th. You weren't testifying under oath, correct?
Okay. Said it.
Okay.
Yes.
My question was really, and I appreciate you clarifying, my question was really the first time you actually told this statement to any law enforcement officer was on January 30th.
Yes.
Okay, we can take that down. That was when you met with Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, that was very close in time to the event. It was the next day. Is that right?
Yes.
The events were close.
The 29th. Yeah. So it would be the next day.
Right, 29th, 30th.
Yeah.
Okay. The events were fresh in your mind at that time?
Yes.
You obviously knew about the importance of that interview. You knew that it dealt with a police officer who had passed.
I knew it was important to talk to the police about what I heard.
And you wanted to be accurate.
Yes.
You wanted to be as detailed as you possibly could.
Yes.
And you understand that memories, obviously, they get a little worse with time, not better with time, right?
Sure.
The closer in time you are to the event, the fresher your memory is going to be about the details of that event. You would agree with that, right?
Sure.
You told Trooper Proctor the day after the event, on January 30th, that the statement that you attribute to my client was actually made to the female, not to you in response to your questioning. That's what you told Trooper Proctor, correct?
I don't have those notes in front of me, so I don't know that I can tell you that that's correct, but the statement was made in response to my question. However, the Miss Reed was looking at the civilian woman as she said that.
Does it refresh your recollection that what
Don't read what you think refreshes a recollection. You can show or you
That
cannot
refresh-
read it. Yes.
take a look at the highlighted portion of that report?
So that bit of clarification that the judge was just giving was that she doesn't want the witness to be testifying directly from it. She just, the purposes of handing her this document right now is not to try to admit this into evidence. This is just for purposes of refreshing her recollection as to what she said on January 30th. So the process for that is she reviews the document. She looks over it silently. When she's done, she kind of like looks up. She says she's ready. And then the defense attorney says, has that refreshed your recollection? Like, do you now have independent recollection basically of what it is that you said on the 30th? And then she says, yes. Okay. Then they take away the document and say, okay, let's talk about it again. So that's what this is. That, and this is a bit of an impeachment at the same time.
And look up when you're finished.
Okay.
May I?
Sure.
Your Honor, may I
Yes.
approach? Does that refresh your recollection about what you told Trooper Proctor on January 30th?
Yes.
And you told Trooper Proctor,
Don't
quote,
let her.
in turn,
Hold on. I'll see it side.
Don't know what the judge's issue with that is. So far, everything's been proper, but basically he's getting to it in this inconsistency. And this is actually very similar to the inconsistency. Which one was it? Oh, it was Timothy, what's his name? Nuttall. He had the same kind of inconsistency in what he had
Yeah,
said.
Yes.
in fact, what you told Trooper Proctor was, quote, Karen then turned to her friend and stated, I hit him. End quote. Correct?
Okay.
Is that yes?
Yes, if you're saying that's in quotation marks in that, then yes.
That's what's in the report.
Okay.
And you don't have to agree with me. I'm asking yes or no questions. Not okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So in fact, what you told Trooper Proctor was that Karen Reed looked at the female to your left and said 4 times, I hit him, correct?
Yes.
And have you since learned that the name or identity of the female that was standing to your left?
No.
That's
You're
interesting.
aware that the female that was standing to your left reported the exact same statement?
No.
Are you aware that the female standing to your left reported that exact same statement as, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Did I hit him?
No, I'm not aware of that.
You then went back to the ambulance after you heard that statement that you believed you heard my client state.
Yes.
You opened the ambulance door, correct?
Yes.
That was the back door,
The side door.
the side door. And there were two firefighter paramedics in that ambulance at the time, correct?
I believe there were more than 2 at that time.
2 of them included firefighter Nuttall and firefighter Flamont.
Yes.
And at that point, you told them what you believed you had just heard.
So I went into the back of the ambulance. I said, this is his name, this is his date of birth. She says he doesn't have any medical history or allergies, doesn't take daily medications. And then I said, she's saying I hit him. And firefighter Nuttall motioned to his face and said something.
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask another question.
So the answer to my question is, yes, you told in front of Flamati and Nuttall the phrase, I hit him.
Yes.
Did you write that in any report?
I don't write a report in this scenario of my job.
Let her finish the answer, please.
So there are two people that will write reports in my department on a call. One being the lead paramedic and the other being the officer who's on scene. So those are the people that write reports, and I was neither of those, so I did not write that in a report.
Okay.
That's correct.
So let me ask the question again. You didn't write it in any report?
No.
You didn't write it in any notes?
No.
You didn't document that statement in any way whatsoever, correct?
Other than my interview with Proctor and my subsequent testimony.
You didn't document that statement in any way yourself, did you?
No.
Since January 30th, in that conversation that we just talked about with Trooper Proctor, your statement has evolved. Is that right?
I don't know how to answer that.
You testified yesterday to something quite different
Doesn't matter how she answers.
Not quite different.
than what you testified, I'm sorry, than what you stated to Trooper Proctor.
Respectfully, I think my testimony has been pretty consistent.
You testified to something yesterday quite different in context than what you told Trooper Proctor. Isn't that right?
I don't know that that's right.
Doesn't
Oh, you
matter
told
what she
Trooper
says.
Proctor, Karen Reed looked at a female standing to your left, said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Right?
Yes.
Yesterday, you told these jurors that Karen Reed said, I hit him, and an officer said, you what? And she repeated, I hit him, and the officer immediately turned and went to find another sergeant. Is that right or no? Yes or no?
No, there was more to that testimony.
That's
I
not what you
think.
said yesterday?
I think I said more than that, than what you just repeated.
Is what I said consistent with what you said yesterday? There's a lot of things that you said, more of. I'm asking, is that the sum and substance of what you told these jurors yesterday?
Yes.
So you would agree that from that time till yesterday, your story has evolved. It's changed.
Would I agree with that?
No?
I don't know that I agree with that.
You think the story that you told Trooper Proctor is exactly the same
I
story?
understand what you're saying. So I understand what you're saying.
So has your story evolved?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Boom.
Ms. McLaughlin, who's Caitlin Albert?
Uh-oh.
I went to high school with somebody named Caitlin Albert.
This is, some folks have been referencing this, that she has a friendship with the daughter of the homeowner in this case, where the defense says that she died. The homeowner, meaning the one that they are going to eventually try to lay some evidence to try to maybe accuse him of killing the victim instead. So this is part of the cover-up sort of theory. And so this is going to be very interesting. So I had a feeling he was going to get into it right after this point, because he started to like really press on her, make her very uncomfortable, make her a little defensive. And so really to press on this, and then now to hit her with, you have a reason to try to lie about this stuff. Let's see how this goes.
With somebody named Caitlin Albert.
I went to high school with somebody named Caitlin Albert.
So do you know Caitlin Albert?
I do.
You're friends with Caitlin Albert?
I would say more acquaintances, not close friends.
How do you describe an acquaintance?
I would say that we have mutual friends, so we might see each other occasionally because of mutual friends, but we don't have a one-on-one friendship or hang out regularly.
Who's her dad?
I don't know.
Do you know who her family is?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach her?
Yes.
So that first objection, I understand is a speculation objection, and just so you know, normally objections, you've got to state the basis, the basic, like one statement for like the basis for the objection. Judge isn't allowing that in this courtroom because she doesn't want people to be grandstanding in the courtroom in front of the jury, I guess. But so we kind of have to sort of contextualize what the objection is. But I think it's a speculation objection on this second one that I kind of disagree with on. So that's why he's requesting a sidebar to go and argue it. So this one would be on the record. But that is not the best way to answer because she sounds awfully cagey.
Defensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Cagey, defensive. Like if she had, you know, I mean, which of course at this point she's already feeling kind of cagey against him anyway because of what they just, you know, went through, the information that they just went through. And that's one of the reasons why he's going through it now is because it helps the defense if she she looks very defensive and very cagey. But she is by basically saying like, yeah, we went to high school together, but like we're not really friends. I see her sometimes because we have mutual friends. Yeah, that's there's still a social connection there. Like you've got to it would have been a lot better if she had been like I know her. Yeah, I do know her. Like, do I spend a lot of time with her? No, but I have had, you know, occasion to, you know, like just be a bit more open about that.
I've seen her in passing, not we hang out with the same people.
Yeah, we're in the same social crowd. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Let's see if I can. Okay. Oh, is the jury going to be sent out now?
And this is because of this objection?
I think so. There might be they might want some more extended argument now about this issue. It could also be related to the judge's instruction that, so, you know, like I said, they've got this theory of this third party culprit theory, right?
Mhm.
The judge said that they're not allowed to like give the jury their theory on that until they have laid some credible evidence.
Miss McLaughlin, I'm going to let you step out for a few minutes, show them what you have, and let a court officer know when you're ready for me to come back out.
All rise for the court, please.
Oh, so he wants to introduce some things, I think.
Mm.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so let's skip ahead of this fan here. All right. So, okay, so I think that, so what it looks like, okay, here's what I think is going to happen. I think he's got some photos and some other documents or something showing her socializing with this other guy. I've seen one photo of her like with Caitlin Albert on spring break or something like that. With like the two of them like hugging in bikinis or something. So that may be one of the things that's going to come up. I'm taking the fan off the screen just so you know, but I am tracking it and we'll be able to hear it too. The audio is still coming through. So, you know, when there's movement in the courtroom, we'll hear it. And so my guess is he's probably going to be either impeaching with this or maybe introducing these as exhibits to show just how close she is with the Albert family or with Caitlin Albert. That's yeah. This is get ready for some fireworks here is what I'm thinking. So all right. Do you have any?
I pulled up,
thoughts?
yeah, I pulled up some of the autopsy pictures.
Okay.
And just I've been kind of glancing at them, and it is hard to tell. You know, the eyes Could they be like shiners from getting punched? Totally. Could it be he broke his nose and that blood kind of, that's kind of how the blood moves. When someone breaks their nose, they'll get bruising around their eyes too. So it's hard to tell. The
Yeah.
laceration on the back of his head, though, I mean, if he fell on asphalt, sure, but if he fell on snow, I can't see how it would look like that with falling on snow.
Yeah. And the thing is, so let me see if I can pull up from my files here. I've got some photos that I've saved from previous days. Let me go through here.
And the bruising on his right hand totally looks like he could have punched someone and broken his hand.
Yeah, yeah, which the paramedics have testified that they didn't see that kind of bruising, but they also said that that kind of bruising may not have shown up at that point, partly because of the temperatures. Like he had extreme hypothermia when they had found him. So like they've testified. Well, there was one that testified he was appropriately dressed for the weather. He had a heavy jacket, but everybody else has said no. He had a light. Yeah, light jacket, hoodie, jeans, missing one shoe. Where did that shoe go? That's the other. That's the one that just sticks in my brain. That's like, I've heard of accounts of people's shoes falling off of them when they've been hit by a car. Like I always think of the Dane Cook sketch on that. But like, and that's understandable. Like I can see that, but they're gonna land somewhere in the area, right? So like, one shoe falling off, okay, but they're looking for evidence, they're looking for clues. So someone would have found that at some point. And apparently no one found it. No one looked inside the house ever is a huge issue for the prosecution.
So that shoe has not been located, like to this day.
That's
What we're
my
trying to-
understanding. That's my understanding is so far it has not been found. Like I personally need this cold case to be closed. I need that shoe to be found. So yeah. Okay, let's see if I can. Okay, hang on. I've got one in particular, this one photo that I want to show you of like where supposedly he was found. Maybe it was here on day 1.
I'm looking at the arm lacks, and there are a couple in particular that I'm like, could that be a puncture like from a canine tooth? Particularly kind of on the lower part of his arm, kind of on his forearm. It's these pictures are not the best, right? Like being in person there obviously would so the medical examiner will give us a lot more information. And
Yeah.
truly, so it was either in medical school or residency. I did a rotation through pathology and worked with the medical examiner here. And so there's so much more to like autopsies and the medicine and the kind of science behind it than what an average doctor would know. There's a lot of, like physics, how things change after death, because obviously cell death happens and there are chemical reactions that happen. And so there's a lot more to it. I'm really interested to see exactly what the medical examiner has to say and to talk about these lacerations, injuries to his arm, what they actually look like, because, it's a picture. You don't see depth. You can't perceive any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me present a new page here, a new tab. So this is like basically where he was found, and you can't really see it from this image exactly, but like right over here there is a fire hydrant. So like that's the only like metal thing that I can think of that he could have hit himself on, but I think down here is where his body was, and his head was more towards the house, feet were more towards the street. So like that whole like the laceration at the back of his head is perplexing to me based on like where he was found and the conditions that he was found in. And when the first responders arrived, they said that that there was 6 inches of snow underneath him. So
which means the snow had been falling for some time, not, 2 hours. It depends. looking like we have to look at the weather conditions and how fast the snow is falling then. But
Yeah.
yeah, the other thing with, if he'd hit his head on the fire hydrant, let's say, for example, he probably would have been knocked out, but potentially maybe not. And he'd crawled so, but then you would see blood streaks or something in the snow. I don't know. There's information missing as always.
Yeah. Yeah. What about like, would there be profuse bleeding from the head cut as cause?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, because we've talked about this before. We talked about this with the Jonathan Majors trial, that like any kind of head injuries, you've got all these, like, you've got thin skin and blood vessels, you get a lot of bleeding
There's
very
gonna be a lot
quickly.
of blood. It goes, I mean, like, people have a little cut and it just bleeds like it's hair, you know? So, yeah, I would expect there to be more blood, and I'm just shocked that the inside of the house wasn't checked. I feel like that should have
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. It's a very weird thing.
Mm.
Let's get some more questions here from folks. Also, Deborah Davies became a new member. Thank you so much for joining Bite Club. Welcome to Bite Club. Hope you can join us. In between stuff, we're gonna be. I was planning to be actually in like 10 minutes doing the members only Bite Club stream that I usually do on Fridays, since today wasn't supposed to be a court day. But we're kind of floating that a little bit today. Someone in the chat also earlier mentioned, here it is, Phantom Split. CBS News also reported testimony will continue this afternoon. Will you be streaming it? If so, yeah, I mean, for sure, I plan to. So we'll see what the judge says at the end of this testimony. If she says that they're going to do a site visit and then come back, in the afternoon, I'm just going to stay on call and then jump on, as soon as they, we've got another live court feed. So we'll keep going with that, for sure, if that is the case. Alejandro Quesada, thanks so much for the super chat. Is a dead body in your front yard enough to get a search warrant for the house, even if it's suspected the death happened outside? I mean, for any kind of a search warrant, you've got to lay out the facts, of course, as to why that should be the case. But I think when a body has been found outside of someone's house, and then there's evidence that comes out that that person had been spending time and socializing and drinking with the people that were inside the house the night before, because the fact pattern is they were all at a bar, the bar closed, the homeowner said, "Hey guys, come over to my house and we'll keep partying." And then Karen drove John over there. She ended up dropping him off. She says that she left and she went home, and she, after seeing him walk through the door, but then there's the other account saying that she instead hit him and left him in the snow. So either way, like I feel like there's enough there that it warrants at least looking to see if there's anything weird, anything funny going on inside that house. If and the missing shoe, like what, did that get stuck on like the undercarriage of her car?
It's gotta be somewhere.
Yeah, the other weird thing about the injuries too, as far as the theory of her hitting him is concerned, is he's 6 foot something, and there are no external signs on his body of injury from like the neck down, other than his right arm. There's nothing, like he did have have a distended belly, apparently, according to one of the paramedics. So that some kind of a sign of something happening internally, but there's they detected no signs of any like no bruising or anything like that.
But belly distension often happens after death with, again,
Okay.
those chemical
So,
reactions.
Mr. Jackson,
Here, sorry, I'll let you finish your thought.
Yeah, no, I was just saying the belly distension, depending on how long he was already deceased for, that the chemical reactions that happen, that like, you'll have belly distension after death. Pretty much
Okay.
everyone will.
Okay. So that's basically a normal thing.
Mhm.
And folks, I've still got a bunch of questions that I've saved up. We'll get, let's actually get a couple more just to kind of keep going through them, and then we'll get caught up during one of the next recesses for sure. M. DeLorean, maybe a stupid question. I'm not that into the details, but if she hadn't hit him, couldn't it have been an accident? Yes, but here's where the prosecution really starts to have a bit more argument on that. There is some evidence that she had been drinking that night. There is a question as to how much she drank that night. Was it enough for a DUI? That's one of the other charges here. It's not the central focus, but it is an important charge here because it is kind of related to the murder charge because if she was drinking and driving, she can also get convicted for killing someone while doing that as well. So there's that piece. If the jury determines that she wasn't drunk and that she did hit him, but it was an accident and she was doing, she like was doing things as, I don't know, she was acting properly as a driver, then that's just an accident. The jury could actually determine that. I don't know how they would get there if they think that she actually hit him, because you've got to be backing up pretty quickly in that direction in order for that to happen. Like I said, he's a big dude. But technically it is a possibility.
What about reporting it? Like if it is an accident, isn't there some responsibility to report it? And is there some legal kind of...
She got up in the morning and when she realized that he never made it home, and she went out and started looking for him. And that was when she was in a panic and she had the other two women with her. And then ultimately they came around, they discovered him where he was, and then they called 911. So I guess, you could say that she was the one who reported it by calling 911 when they found him. So there is that. Firefly Bakery Sweets question: can they file a complaint with the judge sighing in the mic only when defense talks? Can seem like it would influence the jury. I would anticipate that this this defense team is going to make some kind of complaints on the record, maybe to her. It would be on a sidebar is what I would think, so that it's still on the record. It's official for purposes of an appeal, but it's not out there for the razzle dazzle for the public. That's what the judge is trying to avoid here, really, more than anything, because it's such a high profile case. But I would anticipate that if these are very experienced defense attorneys after having been very experienced prosecutors. So I would anticipate that if they think that there's a possibility that has legs to it, that they would make that complaint. Carolyn V, what's the lally tally from yesterday? So the lally tally, Jess, I don't know if you've
I did. I saw that.
The lally tally is the what if any. Yeah, the what if any lally tally. So, okay. So yes, let me report this into you guys. I meant to do this at the very beginning. I always forget at the beginning. But the lally tally so far is day 1, 101 what if any's. Day 2 was 66. Day 3 was 113. So we are up to 280 what if any's as of the end of day 3. In this trial, and we have already added to that tally. So the lally tally is going strong.
3 or 4 at least.
yeah, for sure. MZ, sorry, I didn't quite catch what was soaked through. Are they talking about O'Keefe's clothes? Yes, they were soaked through with like water ice, essentially. Dionysia Jaclo, does Karen will be with the jury? Oh, will Karen be with the jury when they go on an on-site visit? Her demeanor will play a huge impact in the jury's mind there. I don't think she'll be there. I doubt that she will. Also,
one comment, sorry, to go back about the question about being soaked through. That's actually, it brings up an interesting question. Was it soaked through with blood? Was there blood on his clothes, and how much?
So yeah, so far from the testimony that we've heard, we haven't heard anything about there being any blood soaked through. There was blood on him, on his, like, coming from his nose, coming from his eye, but all of it had been dried at that point. So yeah. Very, very interesting stuff. KM, do you think John O'Keefe's family would have doubt that Karen Read was responsible as the trial goes on, or are they convinced she was responsible? I have no idea what they're thinking. I know some folks have talked about that the father believes is on Karen's side. Some folks have said that the mother is on Karen's side, but opening statements, in my opinion, her reaction to opening statements suggests otherwise. I think that at one point she was like shaking her head when defense attorney David Yannetti was talking about like this theory that she had been framed. So that's my personal impression, but I mean, this is just from observing her during that opening statement. I really, I don't know. I've never talked to them. I really hesitate to try to speculate as to like what they are thinking and feeling, other than grieving the loss of their son, obviously, which is a huge tragedy. Mr. W, question: is it just me, or is the judge annoyed by the defense?
Not just you.
Certainly. It seems like it. It definitely seems like it. And the thing is, if you guys are noticing it, the jury might be noticing it too. Oliver Olson, thanks so much for the super chat. The house never being searched, family dog of years being gone, and inconsistent injuries lead to a certain doubt and odor of mendacity, perhaps. Agreed. Yeah, it certainly adds up to something, right? Maybe some reasonable doubt. Alrighty, let's get back to it.
Let's mark for identification the items that you told us about at sidebar.
First in order would be do you want me to describe them for the record, Your Honor?
No. So they're not to be put up on the screen.
These are 4 items. One of them.
So don't describe them. I need to see them. So let's bring them up, mark them for identification, Madam Clerk. Then you'll get them back.
I love that
need these marked for identification.
I love that the transcript is like the AI captions don't understand the Boston accent. We're gonna mock them. We're not gonna mark them. From Debbie on Cook. Would bodies that die in the snow have lividity?
Oh, great
or
question.
would the blood freeze before pooling? Because that was something that also came up yesterday.
Okay, that's a great question. But also, and I'm looking at the pictures from the autopsy, I can't tell if it's just a shadow or if it actually is that blood has pooled kind of more towards his back. That is a really good question. I think it depends on the true temperatures outside, because snow can be insulating to some degree, right? And so I don't know the answer to that question exactly. And I think it really it depends on more factors than just a body laying in snow.
Interesting. Okay, good question, Debbie. Okay. So let's see here. Okay, well, we also have some room to fast forward, time travel a little bit.
These off site marked for identification that appear. You got these off of social media sites, Mr. Jackson?
That's correct.
And feature.
When did you get these?
I couldn't tell you the exact date, but we probably had them for between 6 months and a year.
All right.
So the jury's not in.
Commonwealth, you've not seen these before?
No, Your Honor.
Right. So we'll talk.
How has he not seen them? How has the prosecutor not seen these photos? This is like, oh God, that sucks. That sucks to be that attorney, to be like, are you kidding me? This person has photos with the family that is at the center of like the defense's theory. And I have never seen, like, I don't know that you've gone on these like vacations or trips or outings or what have you. Like that is the worst feeling for an attorney is hearing at trial, like about this stuff. But also, yeah, Jillian Spagnoto, yeah, BS. These were all over the media. They kind of were all over the media. He might not be paying attention to media coverage of the trial right now. So that's the only explanation that I could have for that. But regardless, like, I mean, the jury's not there. So like, it doesn't matter if he says yes or no, that he's, like, it doesn't help him to be like, no, I've never seen these. Or it doesn't hurt him to say, no, I knew that these existed and I proceeded anyway. But, yikes. Yeah. This suggests that they didn't look into her social media. Anytime you have a court case of at any stage, right? Like this is the first conversation that I would have with a new client when we would sign them up to the firm, is to be like, okay, first off, please lock all of your social media, go to private on everything. So it's not observable. If you go on any vacations, please don't post any photos. like just, like if we're seeking damages from some defendant, like please don't post any photos. Go super private on your life right now. And then also, by the way, do you have any skeletons in your closet? Please tell me all of the worst things. I need to know them now because I need to know how to handle them in advance so that we can adequately represent you in the best way possible so that we can get you what you need. So it's like you have that conversation up front. Obviously, this is the prosecution and his client is the state, right? But it's like you should have a similar conversation with all of your witnesses, your star witnesses. This is one of the most important ones right here. Because she says that she had this direct conversation with the defendant and said, I was specifically like focused on getting information from her. And this is what she told me. I wasn't so focused on patient care. I wasn't so focused on, this thing over there. I was focused on her. And this is what she told me. So that's very damaging to the defense, except for the fact that there is now a huge motive for her to be potentially a huge motive for her to be biased. So this is like, oh, it's bad. It's bad if they don't know about this social media stuff. Oh, it's so bad. Okay, let's get to it.
Talk about Rule 14 in a little bit, but we'll bring the witness in. You can ask her questions, Mr. Jackson, about her vacation that you mentioned, the drinking that you talked about, the relationship with Ms. Albert. I've forgotten the first name already. And Caitlin, and about the house. So you can ask her questions about that. And let's see, you can show her these exhibits or these marked for identification if you need to. You may have trouble actually getting those into evidence, but I'm going to let you find out. You can ask her to identify them, how long ago they were, things like that.
Yeah.
All right, could we bring in Ms. McLaughlin, please? Yes.
So the question about admitting.
And Commonwealth, you just saw these today. I'm sorry, I don't remember if I asked you that.
Yes, and yes.
And you were objecting that you objected at sidebar that these come in at all?
Correct.
Okay. So this is the issue here that
Here's the
Jillian
fourth one. I'm sorry.
Jillian pointed out here.
Mr. Jackson, here's the last one.
She mentioned Rule 14, looking at the rule that this could be a discovery rule violation issue for the defense. So in other words, did they have this? So he said that they had this for about 6 months.
Right. So Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Jackson's going to be allowed to ask you questions outside the presence of the jury, and you're still under oath and you have to answer them truthfully, okay?
Okay, so before we get this, let me just finish explaining this part. So discovery rules are that if one side has information, has discovery evidence that they have gathered, and then the other side makes a valid discovery request for the evidence that you have, you don't turn that over at the time that, within a certain amount of time, you will not, there are certain penalties to not turning that over. One of them is not being able to admit them at trial. So the question is, at the time that the prosecution made their last discovery request to the defense, did the defense have those photos on them to hand them over? So if the prosecution says, hey, we made our final request like a week before trial and they never handed this stuff over and they just said that they've had this for 6 months, that's potentially a problem. So here we're going to get into, but potentially this could be perhaps brought in not as evidence, but maybe as impeachment. So we'll see how this kind of works out. Right now, the jury is not in the courtroom. So we're not in the presence of the jury. She's going to be testifying about these photos. We'll see what happens here to see. I think that maybe we're trying to get into the question of whether or not these can actually be admitted. We'll see.
McLaughlin, when just briefly as a predicate, when you stepped out, I just want to make sure we're very clear. Did you have a conversation with anybody from the Commonwealth between the time you walked out of the room just now?
Just about if I needed a drink of water or to use the restroom.
Okay, but nothing about the substance of your testimony.
No.
Ms. McLaughlin, I asked you before we broke if you know who Caitlin Albert is.
Yes.
You said that you went to high school with somebody by that name, correct?
Yes.
You in fact know that person as a friend, correct?
I know her.
She's more than an acquaintance.
I would say she's an acquaintance. She's not a close friend.
She in a group of friends of yours?
We have mutual friends.
How long have you known her?
Probably since high school.
When you say, and I don't want to ask your age, I wouldn't do that. How many years, how long of a span of years have you known her?
Since high school, so maybe 10.
And you know her family, generally?
I don't.
You don't know anything about her family?
I don't know her family.
Had you ever been to her house?
Not that I recall ever being there.
Not that you recall, or you haven't? There's two different things.
I don't recall ever being there.
Okay, so you might have been there, you just don't recall.
I don't recall ever being there.
Okay. If I were to ask you if you have ever been to her house, yes or no, you cannot answer that because you don't know. You cannot recall, correct?
I would say, I mean, I would lean towards no. I have no recollection of ever being at her house.
Are these photos going to place her at the house?
Are you friends with her on social media?
Yes.
May I approach her on that?
Yes.
I'm just going to leave all four of these up here. I know what they look like. Can you do me a favor and take a look at the first document? What does that document appear to be?
It says Caitlin's friends.
What does it look like? That's a printout of.
I'm sorry.
What does that look like? It's a printout of. Does that look like it's from Facebook or one of the social media apps?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Some social media.
Okay. Under Caitlin's friends, do you see your handle, for lack of a better phrase?
I do.
Okay. Is that you?
Yes.
Okay. Can you look at the next photograph? Before we talk about that next photograph, which is, I should go in order for the record, Your Honor. The first one was H. Before we talk about I, which is the next photograph, how long have you been social media friends, quote, friends with Caitlin Albert?
I don't know.
More than 5 years?
Probably.
More than 8 years?
I don't know.
The second photograph, or the second document, appears to be a photograph. It's I, is that right?
Yes,
Do you see yourself in that photograph?
I do.
You see Caitlin in that photograph?
I do.
When was that photograph taken?
I have no idea.
Where was that photograph taken?
I don't know.
You have no idea how long ago that was?
I don't.
What was the event that was depicted, or that is depicted in that photograph?
I don't know.
Is that local, or was that on a trip somewhere?
I don't know. Probably local. If it's a beach, I don't remember. I've never been away to a beach on vacation with all of these people, so probably local.
When we say local, let's talk about local. I don't mean, we may have different definitions. Where would that be? What beach? I'm not as familiar with the location.
I'm not sure.
Maybe on the Cape?
Possibly.
Okay. Do you recognize some of the other folks in that photograph?
I do.
Matter of fact, there's a lot of people in that photograph, right?
There's a lot of people in it.
Did you take a trip with all those people at some point in the past?
Take a trip.
To the beach?
Did I go to the beach at some point with these people? Yes.
Okay. When did you go to the beach with all those folks?
I don't know. I don't know when this picture is from.
Have you
It
gone?
seems old to me, but
Well, you can see yourself. I mean,
yeah.
What was that? Did you say it seems old to you?
Yeah, to me.
Okay.
This isn't like a recent to me.
how old do you think that photograph is?
I don't know. It could be around high school. I'm not sure.
And I know Mr. Jackson didn't want to ask you how old you are. When did you get out of high school?
2014. I
Okay.
graduated.
So could that have been around 2014?
It could be.
So you've known Caitlin for at least that long.
Yeah.
And when I say travel, I mean travel outside of Canton, gone places with her, correct?
Yes.
You've posed for photographs with her,
Yes.
with other folks.
Yes.
It's like socializing and partying, correct?
Looks like socializing.
Maybe a small vacation.
I've never been on vacation with a big group of people like this.
Well, that doesn't look like what would you call that if that's not like a mini vacation?
A day at the beach.
A day at the beach. Okay, so maybe a day vacation.
Sure.
Okay.
Vacation.
Let's look at the next photograph. Jay. May I approach, Your Honor?
I
Yes.
was really trying
I
to
need to remind myself.
not give information on this.
That
It's
photograph
not
looks a
looking
little
good.
older, correct?
They both look old to me. I don't know when they're from.
I'm going to ask you the same questions about that. These aren't trick questions. I don't want to waste your time. What's that from?
I don't remember specifically what or where this is.
Do you see yourself in that photograph?
I do.
You see Caitlin in that photograph?
I do.
You're all posing for the camera, correct?
Yes.
What's the location?
I don't know.
No idea.
I don't.
This is yet another socializing event with Caitlin that you can't recall.
I don't know where this is
Is that
exactly.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your words. Go ahead.
I don't know where this is exactly.
So you've had so many socializing events with Caitlin and other folks that you can't pinpoint this one as opposed to any of the others that you've had.
No, I'm saying I can't. These photos are old. I don't know. I don't remember where these were or the circumstances around them. That's what I'm saying.
You see how you're dressed in that photo?
Yes.
You see do you see the other friends that are there with you?
Yeah.
How many people would you estimate are in that photo?
Do you want me to count how many people?
Give me it. I don't have the photo in front of me, so just give me it. Is it more than 5?
12
12 people.
ish.
Okay. Do you recognize those dozen people?
I do.
Did you go on a day trip with those dozen people?
Yeah, possibly.
When?
I don't know.
Where?
I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't.
There's just a lot of I don't recalls. I don't know. She doesn't want to give any information. It doesn't look good. And the thing is, these photos being old can cut one of two ways. Either it could be we hung out in high school, in the same sort of social group, but I don't hang out with the same group anymore, or something along those lines. That happens, right? Or it could be actually we just go way, way, way back together, right? And like we've been, we've been in this social group that still runs together today. Like those are two very different situations that can be drawn from these photos are old. By the way, Sandy, thank you so much for gifting 5 more Legalbytes memberships. So kind of you. Once again, Amanda, Burley Sullivan, Cameron F, Gordon Shumay, and Loquaria, you have all been gifted memberships. So welcome back to Bike Club. Hope you can make it for our members only live stream. Okay.
Remember.
How many
Wait, sorry.
times have you gone on?
Oh yeah.
One
Day
thought
trips.
I had, are all these, I'm curious, feel like he should be asking her, are you wearing the same thing or different things? Like, are these different days? That would make it clear to the rest of us that don't see the photos. Like, are these multiple different occasions that they're hanging out? Or is this one event that has multiple pictures that, I'm assuming multiple events, but
Yeah.
it's not super clear.
Yeah, it would be helpful to know. I think that if he manages to get this into evidence, then he's probably going to be getting into all of that in much more concrete detail for the jury, for sure. So, but yeah, it would be helpful if it's like, is this a different event? Is this a different place than the other one? Are you wearing something different? Are you, are these different people other than Caitlin Albert being there? Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
With those dozen people?
I don't know.
How about turning back to photograph I? How many times have you gone on day trips and socialized with those number of people? It looks like probably double that, 20 or 25 people.
I don't know.
That's a big group of friends of yours that includes Caitlin Albert, right?
A big group of mutual friends.
So it's not just that she's a mutual friend, she's a friend. Isn't that right?
As I said before, I would consider myself more of an acquaintance. We have mutual friends. I wouldn't consider her a close friend, but Yeah, I mean, that would be my answer.
You basically grew up with her, went to high school with her.
I didn't grow up with her. I went to high school with her.
When I say grow up with her, I mean you grew up in the same town as her, right?
Grew up in the same town.
Went to the same high school as she did.
Yes.
Socialized with the same friends as she did.
Yes.
Went on day trips with her.
Yes.
And have all the same friend group, right?
I don't know that we have all the same friend group. These are people that we're both friends with.
But you don't consider her anything more than just an acquaintance.
I think I described it to you.
The answer to my question is you don't consider her to be anything more than an acquaintance.
I wouldn't consider her to be a close friend.
Now let's take a look at the last photograph. Describe what's in that photograph.
It's a picture of me. Caitlin is in it, and seems to be other people in it as well.
May I approach?
Yes.
Both of you can take it. Sorry, I just want to drop it on you. That's a close-up photograph of who?
Caitlin, and I'm also in it.
And you're doing what in the photograph as it relates to Caitlin?
It seems like I'm kind of kneeling down next to her.
Touching her?
Can I see that for just a minute, please? Thank you. I'm sorry, can you show me you? Okay, thank you.
So just for the record, and may I approach one more time, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Take a look at that one more time.
And here's the thing. It would have been so much better if this information had come out on direct examination. This is another
You're
problem
sort
with the
of
prosecution.
Just behind Caitlin in that photograph?
Yes.
Caitlin's the one drinking the beer?
Yes.
You got your right arm around her?
Yes.
You both appear to be wearing swimwear,
That's the photo that I remember
Yes.
bathing
seeing.
suits,
Yes.
and you're giving some sort of a sign with your left hand.
No, I'm not.
Is that somebody else's hand that I saw? Maybe that's Caitlin's.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have the photograph in front of me. I don't have it committed to memory. Looks like that's a photograph that you and Caitlin posed for together, correct?
It seems like it's a close up of a bigger, like a picture. It seems to be zoomed in on a group of people.
Which was posted on social media,
Okay.
is that right?
Are you telling me that?
I'm asking you that. Have you ever seen that posted on social media?
I don't recall.
I don't recall seeing this picture, but if it was on social media, then okay.
How long ago was that picture taken?
I don't know.
Who took the picture?
I don't know.
Where were you when the photograph was taken?
Probably at a beach if we're wearing bathing suits.
Probably at a beach or at a beach?
Well, I can't see a beach in the picture. We're in bathing suits. It could be at a beach.
Right. Do you recognize the bathing suit that you're wearing in the photograph?
No.
You literally don't even recognize your own outfit?
No.
Oh
So
God.
that doesn't help define where you were and when that photograph was taken?
No, sir.
Do any of these photographs remind you that you've been to Caitlin's house at some point in your friendship with
No.
her? Has Caitlin ever been to your house?
Ruh-roh.
Not
She's
that
been to the house.
Not to my recollection.
When was the last time you talked to Caitlin?
I don't remember exactly. It's probably been a few years.
When was the last time you went to an event, socializing event with Caitlin?
I don't recall.
Again, I don't remember exactly.
Did you talk to Caitlin at any point at or on or around January 29th, 2022?
No.
When was the last time you had talked to Caitlin before January 29th, 2022?
I don't know.
Would have been a day before, a week before, a month before?
No, I don't talk to her. Like I said, we're not like close friends, so it's like pretty infrequent that we would interact. So I don't know when the last time before that.
What about texting or Snapchatting or communicating in that way?
I don't remember.
Would have been a week before the 29th?
I don't think so.
You don't think so, or you know so?
I don't think so.
What about after the 29th, after you responded to 34 Fairview? You ever have any communication with her?
Not that I can recall.
So is that something that you think you might remember if you responded to a house of a father where there's a police officer dead or dying on the yard, on the lawn, 30 feet from the front door? You might have had a conversation with Caitlin?
I've never had a conversation with Caitlin about that call or this case.
Did you ever contact any of your other friends about the fact that you responded to Caitlin's parents' house?
No.
Were you ever asked about this relationship that you had with Caitlin Albert, this friendship that you had with Caitlin Albert at or near the time of the 29th of January?
No.
Did you ever disclose to anybody that you had a relationship with Caitlin Albert at or around the time of this event?
No.
When you went to 34 Fairview, you knew that that was the Albert family home, correct?
No.
When did you learn that it was the Albert? You now know that.
I know that now.
When did you find out?
I don't know. I don't recall. It was some point after. It was, but I don't know when.
Would it have been the next day?
No.
You and firefighter Flamati and firefighter Nuttall were all discussing this case pretty intently after this event, correct?
No.
It's not that often in the little town of Canton that a police officer is found dead or dying on another police officer's lawn. Wouldn't you agree with that?
We responded to a medical call. So the conversation after the fact was at the hospital, debriefing the call, going over what happened, what we use for equipment, what we need, and just like that was the extent of the conversation.
Would you agree that this case, given its notoriety, is discussed at the fire station almost daily?
I don't know when I'm not there, but it does get brought up.
And obviously the fact that the house belongs to, or belonged at the time, to the Albert family is part of that discussion.
I don't know. Like I said, it gets brought up, but I just avoid it. I don't engage in the conversations.
It was certainly enough of a subject matter that you learned, according to you, after the 29th. That house belonged to Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, parents of your friend Caitlin Albert, right?
Well, at that point, it was on the news consistently, so I don't know where that like information was introduced, but
it was pretty early on after the 29th.
I don't recall when it was known that that was the case.
I mean, you didn't learn that that was the Albert family home last week.
No.
You've known it for going on 2.5 years.
I don't know exactly when I learned that that was the house.
I realize you don't know exactly, Ms. McLaughlin. I'm not asking you the day you learned. I'm asking you, you've known this basically through the lifespan of this case.
At some point after I learned it.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out about how long after, a week after, a month after.
I'm not sure.
But it was more toward January 29th than it was yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Yikes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like my own memory from 10 years ago, because memory is a tricky thing. 10 years ago, I graduated from law school. So I'm thinking back to like the times when I would go out on 6th Street in Austin, Texas with my law school friends, or, start off at someone's apartment or someone's house or something and then go downtown. And it's like, even if I went there once, I, I would recognize the front of that place again. I would. I mean, but that's me, right? I can't extrapolate that to, that's totally,
One other couple of brief questions.
that's not necessarily everyone. I can't assume
Do
that.
you know any of
I was
Caitlin's
thinking the
siblings?
same.
No,
You don't know Brian Albert Jr.?
no,
Do you know any of her extended family that might be a little closer in age to you, like Colin Albert?
no,
Have you ever met any of them?
not that I recall.
Not that you recall, or no?
I don't remember meeting any of them.
Your Honor, that's all I have right now.
All right, Mr. Lally, any questions?
Sure. Just a few, Your Honor.
Really quick before that, Alejandro Casada, thanks so much for the super chat. If you treated someone at a high school acquaintance's house, would you find that memorable?
Absolutely. There's a couple of things here. Yes, absolutely. I would remember that. I would remember, things I was wearing in a picture. I don't know. It just, her lack of recall on this for someone who's well studied, supposedly, just seems untruthful to me. I get
Yeah.
that impression.
Yeah.
But yes, if I treated someone at a high school acquaintance's house, I absolutely would find that memorable. Definitely.
Yeah. 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 And those photos too. I was thinking about that too. Like, photos that I have from, 10 years ago being out on 6th Street with like law school friends, like even if it was one of those nights when you're
You drink a
going
little
out,
too much.
you're drinking to forget law school, like even on those nights, it's like, you kind of remember something from those photos. Like there are some photos that I'm like, I remember only what happened around the time of these photos and before this
Yeah, I
point.
remember getting ready for this night and seeing some people at the
Exactly.
beginning of the night. But
Exactly.
yeah, not recalling anything about it seems obscene to me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It does. And especially because she's still living in that area too. So
Mhm.
to be like, I don't know what beach that is. Like you could at least be a little bit helpful to be like, it could be this beach, it could be that beach. Like you could, I
Right.
don't know. I have such a hard time with her answers on this. Ooh.
Yeah.
So, Ms. McLaughlin, you're not friends with Caitlin Albert, correct?
I'm sorry.
You're not friends with Caitlin Albert, is that correct?
I would say she's an acquaintance, not a close friend.
Now, you were shown some photographs of you in a fairly large group with Caitlin Albert, correct?
Yes.
You don't know when those were, correct?
I don't know exactly.
You don't know where you were when those were taken, correct?
No, not exactly. They seem old.
And just to back up, you knew her in high school, but you weren't friends in high school, correct?
I would categorize our relationship as always being just acquaintances. I knew her. We had some mutual friends, but we were never close friends. We don't have a one-on-one relationship.
And as far as high school versus post-high school, would you see her more so during high school, the high school years, or after you graduated?
Well, probably more in high school just because you're there every day. But then afterwards, yeah, only here and there. Like I said, like mutual friends. So maybe events for mutual friends, I might run into her.
And to be clear, and I think you made reference to it, but that last photograph that's marked as K, that seems to be a cropped or sort of zoomed in of a larger photo. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, as far as each of those photos you were shown, you're present in a photo with Caitlin Albert in a much larger group, correct?
Yes.
Have you ever hung out or socialized with Caitlin Albert outside of the setting of a large group?
No.
You've never been to her house before that date of January 29th that you know, correct?
Correct.
She's never been to your house that you know of, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as that first one that's, as far as social media is concerned, as far as a friends list. And without sort of doing it, I'm sort of putting that in air quotes. How many friends would you say you have on social media in total?
I don't know. Maybe over 500. I don't know.
And of those 500 people, how many of those 500 people would you consider actual friends?
Much less than that. Less than 10.
All right, why don't we wrap this up, Mr. Lally?
Just when it comes to that day that you responded, you're working with the fire department, you responded to a call on January 29th to a home, or as you say, to somewhere on the side of the road. Did you have any idea whose house that was adjacent to where the treatment was concerned with regard to your patient?
No.
I know.
Okay. All right. So there was an objection that this was in violation of Rule 14 to admit these exhibits, Mr. Lally. That's what you said, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I agree. So the exhibits don't come in, but based on this voir dire and the answers, I'm going to give you some leeway on exactly what you did. Okay. The relationship, the socialization and the extent of it, friends on social media, those areas. You didn't quite get everything that you mentioned at sidebar you thought you'd get. So that's not coming in.
So
If you
stay within the parameters.
So why don't you come over here then, just because.
Okay. So there's something else that he wanted to get in, I suppose. But okay, so this means that the photos will not be admitted into evidence, unfortunately, because apparently there was a discovery issue. They didn't supply them over to the prosecution like they were supposed to. That is a mistake by the defense. That is a big oopsie by the defense. That it would have been much more powerful if they could have gotten them in. Is the jury biased or is the judge biased? I don't know. I mean, she comes across that way through certain aspects of what she does in the courtroom, but is this a decision that is a result of bias, or is this a proper decision on the law? I mean, he's probably going to continue to vigorously argue right now on the sidebar, to allow these in, and all of that's going to be on the record. So if this is a big issue, that's a potential issue for an appeal. But I mean, if it's true that they had these documents when there was a valid discovery request, then that's something that that it properly prevents them from coming into evidence. So I in that case, I would agree with the judge's ruling. Okay, let's fast forward a bit here. Okay, she's still on the stand. Is the jury coming back in? Let's see. Let's just get it to live.
Impacted by a completely
Okay,
different
hang on. We'll go back. Okay, and then we'll get some questions too. So, but I mean, the thing that is the good thing for the defense on this is that he's still going to be able to go over all of that. You guys heard your impressions on her responses to all of these questions about, these photos and about this and that. And I mean, jury is going to probably have some similar kind of impressions from that, from her vague responses where she's trying to evade, she's trying not to describe these things, she's trying not to remember these things. So yeah, I still think it's a win for the defense, just not as powerful of a win as what they wanted. Kaz Elson, question is, if it's true the judge knows the Alberts too, is it not a conflict to have her oversee the trial? Potentially. I have seen cases where a judge has some kind of a familial connection, or they know someone who is involved in the case. And they have determined that they're not biased. There's no appearance of bias, is what they say. And there have been judges who won't recuse themselves. The issue is, does that create an appearance of bias? and I know that there are a lot of people that feel that way, certainly. The issue with the judge having, knowing the Alberts is the Alberts are very connected in this whole area. They're police officers. Police officers often have a lot of connections with the DA. They have a lot of connections with, all kinds of people in the court system. So it's hard to get away from some kind of a judge who's going to have some kind of who knows in some capacity the Albert family, or some other people who have been around for a long time. I know that the defense definitely tried to get her recused, but she determined that she didn't need to. So, Baz 80s, why do you think the paramedics are so defensive to the defense? I thought they had no skin in the game. Why do they seem to be super cold as soon as the defense cross-examines? I mean, part of it is because, you're taking a certain position as to what you remember and what you saw, and then, being questioned about that. Is like a lot of people get uncomfortable when they're put in that position, even if they don't have a dog in the fight. So there's that. I mean, but there's also like, paramedics work with the police quite a bit. So there could be, some sort of a level of professional connection there too. Even if they don't have a dog in this particular fight, they might subconsciously be feeling like, I mean, we support this side because this is like who we work with.
Like we're all first responders kind of situation.
Exactly. And like, we're going to be working with them on another 911 call at some point. So, I mean, that could play into it, but it could also just be the fact that they're being pressed on their memory of a particular event. They might be feeling like you're trying to make me look bad, professionally speaking. It's a very high profile trial. It's in front of a lot of people. It's very uncomfortable to be made to look like you don't remember something adequately, or even you're lying about something. That's, that would be a good reason why. Irish Lily's question, what is the lady who is sitting at the table in the front of the judge putting up to her mouth? That's the court reporters. That's one form of like a court reporting device where she's talking into it to make the record. It's very strange. I've never seen it in real life. I've always seen the kind where people are dictating and it's like picking up the audio in the courtroom as well. But I've never seen that one like IRL in person. So I don't know too much about it other than that it is a thing that helps to take the record. Michelle F, I posted a link to the article saying the shoe was found. So the shoe has been found. Okay. So that's
Cold case closed.
the cold case has been closed. Thank you for that. That's good to know. I want to know how it was found now. The Lucian, what's going to be weird is if the judge lets this go to jury, she's going to have to restate these answers again. And Karen Lester also similarly, will the witnesses' answers be less dodgy the second time around? Well, keep in mind, everything that she just testified to without the jury present was also under penalty of perjury. So that's a prior statement now that she's made, that if she diverges from that, even though it was outside of the presence of the jury, that is something that can be brought up for impeachment purposes. So it really behooves her to not suddenly remember things if she didn't remember them 5 minutes ago. Baz 80s, I'm 7 minutes behind. What is the point of perjuring the witness without the jury present? If the jury doesn't hear it, is it evidence? So this whole purpose was to try to figure out whether or not the defense attorney could get into this line of questioning in front of the jury, whether or not he could admit into evidence these documents and these photos and things like that. So that's why it was outside of the presence of the jury. Alrighty, folks, let's go. Let's see how this goes.
So jurors, from time to time, there are things that I need to discuss with the lawyers, as you saw. We try and do it as quickly as we can. It's in an effort to make sure that what you see and hear in this case is appropriate for you to see and hear. So sometimes we spend a little time now that will save us a lot of time later. So we do appreciate your patience.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin, thank you for your patience. When we last left off, I was asking you about your relationship with Caitlin Albert. You recall that?
Yes.
I want to ask you a few more questions about that. You and Caitlin Albert have known each other for how long?
Since high school.
Which is, give me a span of time.
So probably about 10 years.
You have traveled with Caitlin Albert and friends. When I say traveled, I don't mean to exotic locations. I mean day trips, etc.
Yes.
You have a group of mutual friends together, correct?
We have mutual friends. Correct.
Those mutual friends have gone on day trips with you and Caitlin Albert involved
Correct.
on more than one occasion, as a matter of fact.
Correct.
On many occasions, as a matter of fact.
I don't know.
More than 5?
I don't know.
More than 10?
I don't know.
You've seen photographs of you with Caitlin Albert on some of these day trips, correct?
Yes.
You've seen at least 3 of those photographs.
Yes.
You're friends with Caitlin Albert on social media.
Yes.
Other than the 3 photographs that you've seen, you just talked about, there have been other events that you've been at with Caitlin Albert that weren't necessarily photographed, or we don't have those photographs, correct?
Probably.
You know that Caitlin Albert is the same Caitlin Albert that's the daughter of Brian and Nicole Albert, as you sit here.
Yes. As I sit here today, yes.
And you know that Caitlin Albert also has siblings, Brian Albert Jr., correct?
As I sit here today, yes, I know that.
And you also know, as you sit here today, that 34 Fairview was, at the time of January 29th, 2022, the Albert home, correct?
I know that as of today.
So she is being a little bit more forthright than she was without the jury present. So, and that's very interesting to watch. The jury, of course, has no idea that she was answering differently before, but for our purposes, it definitely looks a little interesting. A little interesting that, now that she's like, on display for the jury. Now she's like, I want to, I'll play nice. I'll admit to some of this stuff. Very, very interesting.
You indicated, let me rephrase that. When you showed up at 34 Fairview that morning, did you recognize that address or recognize the home as being that of Caitlin Albert's?
No.
You have since learned that that was Caitlin Albert's home.
As I know that now.
Right. And you gave your original statement to Trooper Proctor the next day.
Yes.
And from that day to this day, or let's take yesterday, from that day to yesterday, you learned that 34 Fairview was the Canton Albert family home, correct?
You're asking if I know from...
Between those 2 dates.
Yes.
Between the time you spoke with
Yes.
Proctor in this report till yesterday when you testified, you now know that that's the Albert home.
Yes.
And you also indicated that between that report that you gave to Trooper Proctor, that statement that you gave to Trooper Proctor, and yesterday's testimony, your statement has evolved. You've already admitted that, correct?
I don't think I agreed with you on that.
It's changed. It's different.
I've always testified to I feel as though my testimony has been consistent.
I appreciate how you might feel. I'm just interested in the actual facts. You didn't tell Trooper Proctor anything about this officer questioning my client. Correct?
Objection.
So I'm going to see counsel at sidebar because I think this morphed into a different.
Uh-oh. Okay. So now we've got another.
Didn't she admit to it having evolved in front of the jury? She's already said yes.
She did admit to it having evolved before. He did get that on the record. I do remember that. Okay. Really quick. we've got a question for you from Peter White. Thanks for the super chat. Is Jess the MD going to play the role of the defendant in the movie? Could be her double.
Really?
Very, very kind. In
Maybe
in
kind
either
of her
direction. Christina Kirshner, question: could he get it entered into evidence as a rebuttal to something she lied about? No. I think that discovery violation is pretty severe. So it's just not going to come in.
You agree, Ms. McLaughlin, that the statement that you gave to Trooper Proctor is not the same as the statement that you gave to these jurors yesterday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just one minute.
Yes.
A couple of other questions. When you did make this statement to Trooper Proctor, your visit to Canton PD was coordinated by another officer to put you and Trooper Proctor together for the interview, correct?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall being contacted by a completely different officer to say, hey, Trooper Proctor wants to talk to you, come on into Canton PD, let's have an interview?
I don't remember exactly how the interview was set up.
So that was my next question. You may have just told me this. Do you have any recollection who set that interview up?
I don't.
His name Kevin Albert sound familiar?
No.
You know Kevin Albert?
No.
You know him to be a police officer at Canton PD?
Oh,
No.
You know him to be the brother of Brian Albert?
No.
The objection sustained.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay.
whatever. That's in front of the jury. That there's potentially an interpersonal connection established between her and the statement to Trooper Proctor.
Firefighter McLaughlin, you went to high school with Caitlin Allen, correct?
Yes.
And could you describe the nature of your relationship, if any, with Caitlin?
I would describe it as we're not close friends. I would say we're more acquaintances. We have mutual friends. I don't have a one-on-one relationship with her.
And you were asked some questions about social media, correct?
Yes.
And if you could, or if you could guesstimate about how many friends, and I'm sort of throwing air quotes in there, how many friends on social media would you have?
I don't know, probably 500.
And of those probably 500 friends on social media, how many of those are actual friends that you talk to, interact with?
It's a fair question.
Much less than that.
Now, prior to, well, let me ask you this. As far as, would you say that you saw Caitlin Albert more so when you were in high school or more so since you have graduated from high school?
I would say probably more in high school because we were there every day. So.
And about what year or so was it that you graduated from high school?
2014.
And as far as any sort of photographs that were referenced to you, have you seen those photographs?
Here?
Yes.
Here today, I saw them.
Do you have any idea where or when those photographs were taken?
I don't remember.
And of those photographs, it's not just you and Caitlin Albert in a photograph. Is that correct?
Correct.
So a larger group of people, is that correct?
Correct.
When you were asked about sort of these day trips, they were sort of trips specifically on a day to a beach, it looks like, correct?
Correct.
And to a beach with a larger group of people, is that correct?
Correct.
And with reference to Caitlin Albert specifically, have you ever socialized with her in any setting beyond a setting that contains a large group of people?
No.
Now, with respect to, you went to, when you say high school, you graduated from Canton High School, correct?
Correct.
And you grew up in Canton, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you know Caitlin Albert before you attended Canton High School?
No, that's probably when we first really interacted, was high school.
And essentially, you live within the town I'm sorry, you work within the town that you grew up in, correct?
Correct.
And is that abnormal from a civil service perspective?
No, from a civil service perspective, you're given more points for residency. So it's actually, I would say, preferred, or you're placed higher on the list if you have residency in that town.
So it's actually preferred and more common than uncommon as far as growing up in a town and then working in that same town in a civil service position like a firefighter.
Yes.
Now, during the course of the time that you've been on the Canton Fire Department, have you received calls to residencies or other places or even patients that you either knew or were familiar with?
Yes.
Would that be a reason for you to not go on a call?
No.
And you have an obligation, wouldn't you say, to respond to a call when a call is made and you're on duty in that station, correct?
Yes.
The objection sustained. Ask the question differently.
As far as when you're on duty as a firefighter at a particular station house, and you get a call, what, if any, choice do you have to respond to any particular call?
I don't have a choice. I just have to respond to the call.
And then prior to that date of January 29th, had you ever been over through socialization or otherwise Caitlin Albert's house?
Not that I ever remember.
Has she ever been over your house?
No.
And again, had you ever socialized with her outside of a large group of people?
No.
When you responded on that morning, just after 6 a.m., the house of 34 Fairview Road, did you know who lived there?
No.
During the time since January 29th of 2022, have you ever spoken to Caitlin Albert about what happened that morning in front of 34 Fairview Road?
No.
Now, you were asked some questions on cross-examination about knowing sort of Caitlin Albert's parents' names or siblings' names or things of that, correct?
Right.
And prior to January 29th, you didn't know any of those names, is that correct?
No.
You learned of them subsequently, is that correct?
Yes.
May we approach just briefly?
Okay.
Okay, so we've got another sidebar. All right, let's we're gonna fast forward here until the sidebar is over. I love all the Boston accents in this trial. I'm totally loving it.
So, Ms. McLaughlin, you learned of those other people's names within the Albert family subsequent to your response to this call on January 29th, is that correct?
Yes.
And you learn of those through sort of various news or media reports in relation to this case, not something that you had any conversations with anybody about, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
All right.
Your Honor, if I may, I have
Okay.
a follow-up.
Okay.
You indicated, Ms. McLaughlin, that Mr. Lally just asked you about these 500 friends on social media. A couple of quick questions about that. Of those 500 friends on social media, how many of those have you taken day trips with?
I don't know.
How many of those have you gone to the beach with?
I don't know.
How many of those have you posed for photographs with?
I don't know.
How many of those have you posed for photographs in swimwear with?
I don't know.
How many of those have you been photographed with your arm around while that other friend is drinking a beer?
Sustained. Sustained.
Ms. McLaughlin, all of those things that I just mentioned, you have done with Ms. Caitlin Albert.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, Firefighter McLaughlin, you are all set.
More size.
Yes. And they're always, every single time, they are when
All right,
when the defense is
jurors,
cross-examining.
we are getting ready to go for our view. So we're about to visit a place which you'll be hearing about some more. You've heard about, you've seen photographs of, and in court terminology, we call this a view. The purpose of
fine.
the view is to help you better to understand the evidence, which you'll hear during the trial, and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. The view that you will take is a part of this case. The observations that you make while on the view may be used and considered in your deliberations in reaching a verdict. The place that we're going to go, you've seen photos of, you've heard it, it's 34 Fairview Road. The lawyers and I will accompany you on the bus. The attorneys may point out to you the arrangement of the scene and items that they want you to pay special note of, but otherwise they cannot discuss anything in this case in regard to this case, and they can't talk to you. All right, they'll be able to do an opening here, and they'll be able to point these things out. While you're on the view, it's very important that you can't take notes, and you certainly can't use your phones and take photographs. All right. It's really just for you to see. You cannot conduct any independent investigation while we're there or at any time during the trial, as you've been told. You're not to return to the scene or ask anyone else to do it for you until the case is over. So this is your opportunity to take a look when we go. What you are to do on the view may be best summarized in two very familiar words, which is stop and look. Okay. Your responsibility is to see the place, to observe it carefully, and to remember what you see. So during your trip to and from the place that we're going to view, you're not to discuss this case or anything about it among yourselves or with anyone, and you are not to permit anyone to talk with you about the case. You'll be under the supervision of our great court officers at all times, and you'll remain together until you return to court unless the court officers direct you otherwise. And just so that you know, because some of this came up during our jury selection process, spectators, if there are any, and all members of the press have been ordered to stay 100 yards away from you. All right, so you can go and you can look and take your time looking without
Okay.
worrying about any interference from anyone.
Press will be
All right.
there, but 100,
So with
100
that,
yards
Mr.
away.
Clerk, could you swear in
Was it
please, the
100?
court
Will the
officer?
court officers raise your right hands, please? Do you solemnly swear you will take this jury upon the premises in question and there suffer them to view the same and any property, place, or thing bearing upon the issues on the trial, as they shall seem necessary? That you not permit the parties to enter in a debate in front of the jury or a person to speak to them unless it be Adam Lally for the Commonwealth and Alan Jackson for the defendant. They to point out such places or things as they deem expedient for the determination of the issue, and that you will keep the jury together until they shall return into court, except the court shall otherwise order, so help you God. Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Lally, do you want to do a short view opening?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Interesting.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
Before we get to that, just because, thank you so much for gifting 10 Legalbytes memberships. So kind and generous of you to do that once again. So D-Light, Pesky Pirouette, Nick Wilson, Kelly D, Lynn S, Brittany Pratt, Noam, Ohio Palm Mom, Meg's Morbid Curiosities, Sarah Nee D. You have all been gifted memberships by Just Because. So welcome or welcome back to Bite Club. I hope you guys can join us for our members only stream later. And there are a couple questions here about this right now. Family man Donnie, notice how the entire point of this witness testimony has shifted from Karen's statement to the Albert's connection. Wow, defense is on it. I agree. I'm actually very surprised that the redirect did not end with like, okay, but let's revisit like, you know, what you remember of your statement, you know, from Karen Reed, from the scene of the incident, because that was still within the cross-examination. So it's totally could have come in, you know, it could have been revisited under redirect. It still would have been within the scope. So the fact that he didn't do that is very, very interesting. And the jury is left with focusing less on what Karen Reed said or maybe said, and more on the connection between Katie McLaughlin and Caitlin Albert and the Albert family in general. Wild. Defense team is really good, but for except for that one mistake of not getting that evidence over to the prosecution. So that is something that is a disappointment. But that's the first time that I've seen them make some kind of an error or a big error, really. Notice question: how normal is it to take these sightings trips in court? I have actually not viewed a trial where they did a sighting like this. I know that in the Murdoch trial, that was part of it. But as far as trials that I've covered, I haven't seen that in those. So it really just depends on, like, is there a particular location that it's helpful to get an understanding of, the actual dimensions of these places. Cabeza block. So will the area be gated? I don't think it'll be gated, but probably it'll be closed off by the police. I think that they probably have like police barricades that they'll be setting up to make sure that folks either go or don't go in certain places. Okay. Any other questions that I may have missed while I had that saved? I think that's it. Okay, let's get this opening for the viewing.
As her owner just described, we're about to go to a place. When we arrive there, and at any point in time when we're there, this is not a point where we can have any sort of conversation or back and forth. So all I'm going to be asking you to do is just take note of certain locations and certain items as you see them. And again, as with anything in this case, this is as you find them, as you observe them, okay? So first I'm going to ask you to sort of, when we arrive in a general area, as far as taking note of sort of street names when you're coming into and when you're exiting from this particular area. When we arrive at a specific location, I'm going to ask you to take note of certain things about the roadway. Okay, certainly any abutments to the roadway, any residences that you observe, the distances between the roadway, and any landmarks or any items that you observe on that property, specifically a driveway, specifically a front door, any other sort of items of interest within the front lawn area of that home. I'm also going to ask you to take note of the roadway itself and sort of the width of that roadway, whether or not you find any sort of lanes separating within that roadway, and then the individual width of some of those lanes as well. Lastly, there is also going to be a vehicle. And I'm going to ask you to take note of certain things with respect to that vehicle, okay? With respect to the size of the vehicle, with respect to the height of the vehicle, with respect to anything that you observe specifically from the front, the side, the back, all of the exterior of that vehicle, and then also some of the interior of that vehicle. And specifically, I'm going to ask you to take note of sort of the center console in the front driver's compartment of that vehicle, and anything that you observe in that location as well. And that is all I'm asking you to do on this case, and I thank you again for your time and attention.
All right, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first time we've been able to speak to you directly, so I want to take the opportunity to introduce myself and thank you for your service and thank you for your time and commitment to this. I'm going to echo a lot of what Mr. Lally just said. There's nothing magical about this other than it gives you perspective. It's an opportunity to introduce you in three-dimensional form to stuff that you've been seeing in two-dimensional form. Photographs, some of the testimony, diagrams that you might see.
So I'm sorry, we're really pointed on what you can say.
What we're going to ask you to do is take special note of the relationships of physical items out at the scene. Much as Mr. Lally just indicated, there are going to be physical things out at the scene. You've heard about a flagpole, a fire hydrant, a house. We're going to ask you to take special note of where those are in relation to other things physically at the scene. That will hopefully, with the court's instruction, give you some assistance in putting together the testimony that you think is relevant and the documents that you think are relevant. Again, to echo what Mr. Lally said, we're going to ask you to look at the roadway, the vehicle, the house, the physical items at the home, and the relationship between and among all of those things to each other. Hopefully, that will give you a very good understanding of what we're dealing with, especially with the exhibits. Thank you.
All right, so folks, we'll be all set. We'll see you at the bus in a little bit.
Just make sure your notebooks are closed.
Okay.
You are muted. Goodbye.
Okay. So, all right, so the stream hasn't actually ended. So I wonder if they're going to keep the stream going for later, for when the jury comes back from the site visit. I don't know, but I'm going to answer some more questions here, and then I'll end the stream and kind of and then come back if they do have more testimony today. So keep an eye out for social media posts and that kind of stuff. Jess, you are more than welcome to come back. Please do. I love having you on with me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great. So I know you can't come every day because you've also got normal work,
Like a full-time
dealing
job.
with real patients. Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
But whenever you're available and we are streaming this trial, please do jump on with us. I love it. And here's
Definitely.
a question for you too, from Baz80s. Just said that the injury photos looked like it could be a dog bite / attack. Do they also look like they could be a vehicle hitting him? That's a good question.
So I'm just sorry, I'm scrolling through to get back to the pictures. Yeah, maybe it's so hard to say. This doesn't necessarily look like road rash necessarily. Could
Okay.
it be a car? It could be like he fell and then she kept going, and that's abrasions on his arm from like the bumper and the underside of the car, and he's, protecting himself in something. Yeah, maybe. It's a really hard question to answer. And when I say it could be a dog bite attack, I'm more saying like some of those spots could potentially be puncture wounds. So not even necessarily for sure a dog, but punctures.
Yeah. Interesting. And the thing that gets me, that requires explanation from the prosecution, is the fact that, I mentioned this earlier, but didn't really go more into detail about it. But there's the issue of the fact that there's no bruising anywhere on his body, like from like neck down, other than his arm and his hands. So like nothing on his legs.
Something on his legs. Like that's the first spot the bumper is going to be hitting and probably breaking, especially if she's going fast enough to knock him out and kill him. I mean,
And to break her tail light.
yeah, that part doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. It requires explanation. If the prosecution can't explain that well enough, then I'm calling total BS on this.
Mhm.
The only thing that I can sort of like posit on my own as like a possibility is, they have mentioned that there was also some kind of like broken glass found there that they think is a broken cocktail glass. He was seen with a cocktail glass at the end of the night at the bar. I
Mhm.
think that what the prosecution has said is that he also left with it. So he had it with him in the car, I guess. So, maybe he stumbled and dropped it and was reaching to pick it up, or fell with the cocktail glass in hand, and then she hit him or something. And so maybe that would explain why the injuries would be on this part of his body if he's bent over.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
why she
only
wouldn't
thing
have
I
seen him, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you keep mentioning he's a big dude, 6 foot, whatever. So if he's crouching down and he's below where she might see him in the rear view, definitely. And then, yeah, that could make sense. Could it be puncture wounds from glass, like shattered glass? Yeah. The autopsy then might show that there were some glass fragments that were kind of lodged in his skin.
Yeah. Yeah. So but like I said, it's I want to see that explanation from the experts and from the prosecution
Yeah.
as to how that could possibly be possible. All right, another question here. KM, is there any scenario where a judge can overturn a jury's decision? Yes, there are. There are. The side that loses can file a motion for a basically a decision notwithstanding the verdict. And that basically is saying, the argument is that there's absolutely no way that the jury could have come to this conclusion based on the evidence that came out. Now, in order to win on that, like I'm not a betting person, but I would never bet on that as winning unless it really was a very serious case. where it's very clear that the jury did not follow the rules on what they were supposed to do to find a verdict one way or another. Generally speaking, the jury system or the judicial system has a lot of faith and trust and sort of like a lot of faith and trust in juries. So, when the jury comes to a conclusion, especially if there are not like very strong arguments to change that decision, to say that they've done something absolutely wrong, that there's been some kind of, you know, improper conduct by the jury or by someone else who was around the jury, the judges and appellate judges and appellate courts, they have a very hard time overturning a jury verdict. The times when they do, I mean, it really is a very, very, very serious thing. Either the evidence that was brought in was improper, like the Weinstein case, that was pretty shocking. That verdict was changed over, but that wasn't because of jury misconduct. That was because of the judge's decision on whether to admit or not admit certain evidence that they determined was character evidence. So like there are ways in which it can happen, but taking the decision away from the jury, the court system really doesn't want to do it. So it has to be like a very, very strong argument to do it. Alrighty. I think that's all the questions that I have for now. Oh, but here's a good comment from Jillian Simonoto, another attorney in the chat. If it ever happens, it's when a jury convicts. I've never seen a JNOV where a jury acquits and judge reverses that. Yeah, that would be extremely, extremely wild. So, alrighty. Okay. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I can't wait to see what the medical examiner actually says in terms of what they observed, because
Yeah.
that will make the biggest difference, I think, in the case. I was saying before, but I just need to reiterate that there's a lot of like medical science involved in autopsies and looking at how things like the physics of an accident and all these kind of things that are very specific to pathology training. And so I'm really curious to hear what the expert has to say on it.
Yeah. Me too. I think also it'll be interesting to see because, we've got like 3 groups of people that can testify as to the injuries, right? We've already heard from the paramedics now. I don't think there are any more on the list. I don't think. But then there's the hospital staff, like the doctors and the nurses and people that they transferred him over to. So it'll be interesting to see what they say, if there's anything more that we can learn through talking to them or hearing from them. And then, of course, the medical examiner. So it'll be really interesting to see that whole progression and see if we get new information or changing information from any of that. So,
And I don't recall exactly. Was he already deceased on the scene, or were they like they had a small like a thready heartbeat that they were trying to revive him?
they couldn't feel a pulse and he was
Okay.
cold to the touch. So they testified that they were trying to warm him up and they were giving him CPR. And what I did see in the comments on one of the videos, either yesterday's live stream or yesterday's recap, I think, someone commented that I think they were in emergency medical services, and they said that there's this concept of like, that you don't declare someone dead until they're warm and dead. Like first you try to warm them up, see if you can revive them. And if they're warm and you still can't revive them, that's when you declare it. And based on the testimony so far, it seems like that declaration hadn't been made until he was at the hospital.
Okay. Warm already. Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, but this has been an absolutely fascinating day. Yet another amazing cross-examination.
Yeah.
Not perfect this time because of that discovery issue, but still masterful work by Alan Jackson. I'm starting to become like an Alan Jackson stan at this point because I think that there is so much that anyone can learn from his ability to cross-examine any witness, and to do so charismatically too. The fact that he can connect with these witnesses while cross-examining them, while putting them on the hot seat, and at varying points, like connect with them and be like, oh, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. Like, I'm just, we're just trying to get to the bottom of this. And it's just a memory issue. It's not a big deal. And then at the same time, like a little bit later being like, well, what do you mean? You didn't say anything about this before. And like, it's just, it's pretty impressive. It's really impressive, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I'm obviously no attorney, and I'm impressed with how he's pulling out information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Absolutely. Alrighty. So that for me about does it. I'll wrap it up for now. And like I said, keep I'm going to be putting stuff on social media for if there is more testimony today, we will be jumping on. For those of you in Bite Club, I've got to take care of a few things behind the scenes, but then I'm going to be setting up a Bite Club member stream also. So we'll try to do that for about an hour. I'm going to give you guys we'll probably do that in about 40 minutes. So that we'll do that. And then we'll go from there. We might be interrupting that for testimony. So folks, just keep that in mind. We're trying to be flexible here with what's going on. So, okay. Yep. That's about it. I'll see you guys in the next video.